Welcome to the Movies of the Damned podcast. My name is Kyle Grant, and I'm sitting here, as always, with my friend and published horror author, John Hunt. If you enjoy what you hear here today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, and follow us on both Instagram and Twitter, at Damn Movies. Email us any questions, comments, and suggestions to moviesofthedamned@gmail.com. For further details on John's published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Today, we'll be discussing Neil Marshall's 2005 adventure horror thriller, The Descent. The film follows Sarah, who joins a group of female friends on a caving expedition after having lost her husband and daughter in a car accident. After entering the caves, the group soon becomes trapped and is hunted by creatures who have perfectly adapted to the darkness of the caves. Ultimately, everyone in the group perished, and Sarah is able to escape to safety, depending on which cut of the film you watch, that is, but we'll get to that later. John, opening thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, so it might be a surprise, but because I am a big horror fan, obviously. I have not seen this movie, and I've heard so many good things about this movie over the years. So it took me a while to actually get to watch it, but I have to say I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I spent the time to watch this film because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that right off the hop here, that really surprises me, especially number one, as you just said, considering all the praise that this movie has gotten, but number two, who the filmmaker was. Neil Marshall. Like, you loved Dog Soldiers.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
It was tough for me to understand why you never got around to seeing this one. I guess there's just so many out there, it just wasn't the top priority.
Well, with the kind of like how busy it is here, it's hard for me to get a couple hours here and there to watch a film. Like I'm able to manage because of the podcast and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's work, it's kids, it can be challenging to get it in. I'm really glad that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I fit this one into the schedule as well. But yeah, that being said, you're absolutely right, because this is one of those films that, because I heard such good things and because of who the director was, I normally would have made the time for it anyways, even if it wasn't for the podcast. Like, I would have stayed up late and suffered at work the next day or done something, you know what I mean?
No, and you're right. And so for me, I did see this one right after it came out. And what I learned after watching the American version that's on Amazon Prime right now is the version I first watched was the original, the United Kingdom version. And so, as you might have guessed from my opening synopsis there's kind of some differences, and it's mainly the ending. For the US version, they cut about a minute off the end, but we'll work our way there eventually. But to start with, this movie really, as I like to say, hits the ground running. Crazy car crash at the beginning.
Yes, for sure. And it was quite it was quite the car crash, right? Like, the way the poles went flying, it was fairly gory, and
Yeah.
it caught you off guard. It caught me off guard, anyways.
No, exactly, right. And that's what I mean. It's just kind of like you're like, oh, what's happening here? Like, it obviously, if you've seen any sort of trailer, you know that they're going to go get to these caves, but you didn't really know what kind of this prequel to the main events of the movie are going to be. But then when you see those poles go in there, killing the husband and the kid, it's like, oh my gosh. Having said that, though, I'm glad that they didn't show the kid actually dying.
Yeah, it's one of those taboos, right? You really shouldn't show those too often. And when you do show it, it should be subtle and done with taste. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how I feel about it, anyways. When kids and dogs are involved, or mostly dogs, but other animals as well, right? It's just, their death should be done in a subtle way with just more taste, right? Because that's, as an audience member, as an adult, you don't. It just makes it a little more. I don't know. Maybe gratuitous is not really the word, but more gross, I would say. It takes the enjoyment out of the film, anyways, because you're so distracted by how horrified you are if they show something like that.
And you're absolutely right. And so the fact that they died in the first place is horrifying enough. You don't have to see those gruesome images. And they did
Mm.
it in a very tasteful way here. But again, caught me off guard, caught you off guard, probably caught most people off guard and kind of gave you what to expect in this film. So then after those sequences, we kind of have a bit of a flash forward. And you can obviously tell that Sarah's struggling. Obviously, she lost her family.
Yeah.
But I guess she gets convinced to go on this caving expedition with a group of her girlfriends. So that's kind of where we pick up, where they head to this cave. And John, I'm sure as you were watching this, this must have popped into your head. But for people who are claustrophobic like me, what a nightmare! And that's before the monsters even are introduced. Just like being in these cave and crawling through those tight caves, tight passageways, like, and some of the passageways there's like water you have to go through. Like, forget that. How is that fun to someone?
No, I was watching that and I was like, oh my god, this would be a nightmare for Kyle for sure. But you know, I would say it's a testament to the director's skill, because I'm not claustrophobic, but this movie made me feel like, oh, I don't want to be there. You know what I mean? Like it made me feel uneasy just to watch them maneuver themselves through these tiny little spaces as they progress their way through the cave. And I think that's well done if they can do that, because I could care less. In any type of situation like that, it's your mind that will kill you. It's not the actual environment, right? So um, that's why I've never been really too concerned about claustrophobia. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's a because the walls can't normally. The walls can't hurt you, right? It's you getting panic that can hurt you. So, um, but watching this, I could see like some of those scenes. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I would panic or not. Like it was pretty tense, and I enjoyed watching it.
And you're absolutely right with kind of like your comments there. It's the panic that gets you. And as you can see, kind of, and this is again before the monsters arrive on screen, when the one girl gets caught as she's crawling through that tight
Yeah, it was Sarah.
passageway, and she
Yeah,
starts. Yeah, and she starts. Yeah, you're right. It was Sarah. And she starts panicking, and the girls like that's the first thing. It's like you have to calm down, and then we have to work our way through this, right?
yeah,
And I know myself. I wouldn't have the presence of mind to be able to stay calm. I would be
yeah.
panicked before I was even stuck.
Well, when they tell you about drowning people, right? Like, don't go to try to save a drowning person because they will climb onto you and pull you under because they're not thinking. They're so panicked. They're so worried about dying. Their rational part of them has left, and all that's left is the animal instinct to pull you down, right? Thinking they're saving themselves or whatever the case may be. So it's like that situation in the cave there. And like I said, like normally the walls don't get you. It's not, but in this instance, the walls started to fall on them, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely. Yeah,
So I thought that was like, oh my god, that's crazy when they're just saying okay, because she did get Sarah calmed down, and then things started to fall, and I was like, oh my god.
it was like a mini earthquake or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. Just like it just wasn't good. That's for sure. But some of the stuff that I found was interesting. So when they first got down to the very bottom of the cave, Sarah sees like four finger marks in red on the wall, like someone was trying to climb out. Like there was a groove cut into it, and I'm like, wouldn't you like ask anyone about this? Like that was my first thought. Like I see these four finger marks. They look like finger marks. They look like someone was trying to claw their way out with the red fingers. And I'm like, wouldn't you say to your friends like, what's this? You know what I mean? Like, you haven't
Yeah,
gone that far into the cave yet, so I'm just kind of like, at that point, it would have been the perfect time to question exactly what it is that you're doing.
no, and you're right. Even if you're not concerned, it would still be something to be like, hey guys, check this out. This is kind of weird, different. You're
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, she likely would have said something.
Yeah. So and then there's another thing so when I was watching it, I was like, okay, well, they're going to a cave that's on a map that everyone tells them to go to, and so why are these creatures going to get them and not other people? And then, but they explain that later on, right? She took them to a different cave. It wasn't the actual cave that they were supposed to go to.
Yeah, the one girl whose name is escaping
Juno.
me, but
Juno.
yeah, Juno, that's right. She's almost like the more of the daredevil, risk taker, adventurous one of the group. Although I would say they're all pretty adventurous considering they're willing to go through these caves.
Yeah, but she is the ringleader behind it, right? Like she's the driving force. Like, it would have been her idea. It was actually her idea to go where they went and to go to those caves itself. Now, another interesting point where Holly, which was Juno's friend, like her protege or whatever they called her, she was like complaining,
Yeah,
"Oh, the Boreham caves is going to be so boring," blah blah blah. Because she complained about it being boring and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, she's going to be the first one to die because she's the one that's is underestimating the danger that they're about to walk into, right? And
yeah.
but she died. She did die first, but for a totally different reason. So it's like I was like, oh, that's very interesting how they did that, because like I feel like they used normal tropes to get the audience thinking a certain way, but even though that did come true, it didn't come true for the reason that you think it should come true. You know what I mean? So I thought it was very interesting with that, because she got killed like she was the first one to get killed by the creatures, but um, they were actually in the caves that she would thought she if she knew where they were going, she would have thought would be exciting. She wouldn't have
Yeah,
called them boring. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So I thought
No,
that was pretty interesting.
no, no, and that is interesting. And that's a good point. And now that you bring up the creatures, comes my kind of like one of my big issues, my big question for you. So these creatures have lost their sight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there's no need for sight when you're in these pitch black caves, correct?
Yeah.
And their other senses are all heightened.
Sure.
But then why isn't their smell heightened? Because there was a couple scenes where the creatures are directly on top of these girls while they're alive and kind of just like go right by them.
Actually, I didn't have problems with those scenes. I had more problems with the ones where the creatures, like I think touch would have been even more. But here's why I didn't have a problem with the smell. Right? They were crawling through these caves. They were like the cave itself was getting on their clothes, on their skin. Like it was just they're covering them in cave dust or whatever. So I didn't have a problem with that because I think that would mask their smell, right? To a certain degree, it would mask their smell. They would smell like the cave. The only thing in my opinion, anyways, but the only problem I had with is like when, um, was it Sarah crawls out of that I guess puddle of blood
Yep,
after she just killed one of them, and
yep.
she's lying still on the stone, and the creature kind of comes out, can't see, but he's pretty much sitting over top of a fire, doesn't feel the heat, and rests his hand on her head, but doesn't notice that it's not rock. I was like, that's really. I didn't like that part for sure. I was like, this is weird.
And so I think that's like one of my similar problems, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can get behind it if you're like across the cave from them and you don't make a sound. But even then, they're an animal. They probably would be able to smell you, right?
Well, we don't know what it seems. It would seem like they're an offshoot of humans, right? Because they
No, no,
showed.
you're right. And sorry, by animal I meant they were like operating by more animal type instincts.
Yes, because they didn't. It's one of those things where they didn't show too much. They didn't show like a social structure. They didn't show anything like that. It's just these people operating or these creatures operating in the darkness, and I there's obviously a lot of huge issues with it, right? So one, Sarah is able to get out. So why haven't these creatures over the millennia decided to venture out? There'd be more food sources outside the cave than in.
Yeah.
That's a fact. So like, why didn't they do that? There's a lot of things that we can go into and dissect and question, um, about the actual nature of these creatures, and I think we did be valid points to pursue. But at the same time, we're not watching a serious film, are we? We are watching a creature feature, and sometimes, even though the suspension of disbelief should be heightened for these type of films, sometimes you just can't get there, right? And so you have to fall back on tension and, um, surprising the audience with gore or whatever you want to do. And like I said, I enjoyed this film, although I would say at near the end it denigrated into close to like a B movie status, um, with some of the action sequences. But other than that, like I said, I really enjoyed this film. And
And
another thing that I
yeah,
think,
go ahead.
sorry, another thing I think they explored a lot, which they have in a lot of films, is which I would like them to step outside this and do something different. It's like always the person who suffered trauma is the one that usually, I'm not going to say all the time, but usually survives the film, right? So Sarah is the one that lost her
Okay.
family, and now she's the only one that survives in the US version. She's the only one that survives this entire experience. She makes it to the very end. Why do they do that in so many films? Why is it the person that suffered the trauma the one most likely to survive? I
I believe the I believe the reason they do it is for the viewer because people love underdogs, and so they get invested in this person. They really want it to work out. They're cheering for them, and they give the audience what they want. I think that's why they do it.
I don't know if they're underdogs though. So if you go through a very tough experience, I think this is what they're relying on, which I don't think is necessarily true. If you go through a really tough experience, you develop a callus, right? You develop
Yep.
uh, a toughness that wasn't there before, right? Due to this traumatic experience. So I think they throw these traumatic experience in so the audience can say, yeah, you see, they survived because they're tough. They didn't crumble under the trauma because they've been through trauma before. They didn't panic where other people would panic. You know what I mean? They're trying to throw that out there, as well as you said, create an emotional attachment to the main character. Um, but I would just like to,
Tough times make tough people.
yeah, but that's not necessarily true, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tough times can destroy some people, right? I would just like to have the person who is the most ill-equipped survive. So, like, a good example of that would be um, in the cabin in the woods, where the pot
Great
smoking,
movie.
yeah, great movie. The pot smoking, uh, you know, antisocial or anti-capitalist type character is the one that
Yeah.
survives, right? He's not the athletic jock. He wasn't anything like that. He was just that guy that likes his weed and likes to chill out and is not too motivated or ambitious about anything in life. And he survives. Like I like that. I like how they did that. But once again, I really went on a digression there. But I still like the Sarah character. I thought she was fun to watch.
No, and she was fun to watch, and like uh, again, it sounds like we're picking this film apart, but no, if for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a good film to watch. It's enjoyable. The only time it really pulled me out of it was again when I said, I'm like, should these creatures have better smell or better feel, like you brought up? But otherwise, it's a really good movie. One point I want to ask you about though. So there's this sequence when Juno is fighting a creature, ultimately ends up killing a creature. And then another one of the girls whose name is escaping me kind of
Beth.
sneaks up, Beth sneaks up behind her, and Juno literally accidentally kills her.
Yep.
Um, but then Juno doesn't tell anyone. I don't get that. Like it wasn't on purpose. It was a clear cut accident. It could have happened to anyone. I just don't understand the kind of like the hiding it, the not saying anything. What were your thoughts there?
I didn't really have too much of a problem with that. I think there would have been two conflicting emotions going through Juno at that point. One is enormous guilt, right?
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
Two, she brought them all there, right? So you
Yeah,
have she brought them all there to the wrong cave for this experience. She kills the person by accident, and as far as she knew, uh, Beth had died.
yeah.
So there would be no reason for anyone to know any different. So why start an argument with your friends over accidentally killing another friend when you potentially don't even need to bring that up?
Yeah, I guess what you're saying makes sense. I guess I was just looking at it a point of view as like um, the fact that she didn't tell them ultimately led to her demise.
Yes, but only because she didn't know Beth was alive.
Yes. Okay. 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 And again, I guess you can win me over with that a little bit. I'm just like, why wouldn't you just explain what happened? And because it was a rational situation, it wasn't even
Hmm.
like she was being reckless.
No, I know,
It's like
but
she
she,
just got, like, literally just got finished fighting for her life, and an instant later thought there was a thing that snuck up behind her.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know if that's exactly her motivations, but to me, it didn't jar me in any way. It didn't make, it wasn't nonsensical to me. Um, I was able to see what it was for or whatever, the device behind why she did what she did, and I didn't have too much of a problem with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Um, Now, the elephant in the room, something that I've hinted at a couple times already. I want to talk about the ending.
Okay.
Did you do any reading about the real ending?
No, because I wanted to hear you.
Okay. So for those of you, perhaps there's other people out there who had only seen the UK version like me. Basically, the US version is just it cuts off the last minute of the film. So John, in the real movie, what happens is just like you saw in the Amazon Prime US version, she escapes, she's in that truck, but then you ultimately find out that that was all just a hallucination and she's actually still back inside the cave, kind of staring at the fire, imagining that it's a birthday cake for her daughter.
Oh, because they
And
showed those symbols throughout the film.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was going to be my next point. When you chop off that ending, those transitions, when they're showing those blurry the birthday candle and cake throughout the movie, doesn't make any sense. But it makes perfect, those transitions make perfect sense when you have the real ending of her kind of like sitting there, like almost comatose in the cave, staring at the fire, thinking it's that cake. And so the real movie kind of ends as she's doing that, and the creature's kind of closing around her, and then the credits roll.
Hmm. That would have been a better ending. But I will say, the cake visions made sense to me as well because it would have been motivation for her to survive.
I guess like,
No,
but then wouldn't visions of seeing like her daughter's face give her motivation then?
no, I know, but so I know you're tying the birthday candles in with the fire, but a lot of times, what's really important, or a lot of the memories that you have, are birthdays of your children, right? So,
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with that. I would think I tied the fire to that because she was in a cave and fire is light, and and then she sees the fire, and that's something that would trigger that memory, and then trigger her motivation to uh, keep on pushing, keep on surviving.
I don't know, man. I disagree. I personally think that without the real ending, those transitions are nonsensical.
Okay, but I'm telling you, I didn't see the real ending, so
Yeah.
I didn't have the context that you
Yeah.
have, and they
Hmm.
still made somewhat sense to me. Is all I mean.
Okay. All right, I guess. I just thought that the real ending was so much better than
Oh,
this
it
one.
sounds way better. It sounds way better. I think that would have been a great ending.
And I guess the reason why they changed it is because before releasing it in the US, they did kind of like those test groups they like to do.
Yeah.
And people were upset with, and I quote, the uber hopeless finale. And so because of that, they wanted to make it a little bit more uplifting with her being able to escape. And I guess the was okay with the change because when he had written it and when they were filming, he ultimately had a lot of different endings in mind and
Hmm.
wasn't really married to any of them.
Well, that's interesting because, like, remember I was just saying, like, she easily escaped, and then well, not easily escaped, but she found a way out through that sunlight or whatever. I'm like, why didn't these creatures ever do that before? Because there would have been a rich food source outside, like I just said this. But if she never actually escaped, that would have been so much better because it would have made more sense that they never left the cave
Exactly, exactly.
because there is no exit.
Yeah, no, and so and that just only leads to the fact that I like the United Kingdom version so much more.
Well, just I like those ones. I like the one, yeah. I like the ones where it's like you don't expect that ending. You don't expect everyone to get killed. You just don't. So I say that's a better ending just based upon that.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you. Having said that though, critics love this movie.
Hmm.
85 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Audience score is also pretty high, 75.
Hmm.
Where are you at? You in the 70s, 80s, somewhere else?
I'm in like the 85s and 90s for sure, for sure. For the movie, for
Yeah.
what type of movie it was, like I really enjoyed this film. Now, like once again, like I said near the end, where you know Sarah's Sarah and Juno are all of a sudden like combat experts with
Action.
axes,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just
Action
like,
heroes. Yeah.
yeah, and they're in these other creatures' environment who've evolved to live and move and go in there like that. They've been there for like thousands of years. They wouldn't stand a chance. They just wouldn't. So I found that start a little B movie ish, which once again makes me think the UK ending was way better, way better. But other than that, like I this everything this movie had everything. It had tension, it had good character development, it had great creatures, it had some gore, it had
Some
some
good scares.
some jump scares. Not that I jumped, but they were there, and this is a great horror film for sure.
No, no, you're right. And I'm in the 80s as well. I can't disagree with that. Commercial success, made for only 3.5 million, ended up bringing in over 57 million.
Bam.
And you know what that means, John?
Sequel.
The Descent Part 2.
Oh yeah.
Now, I actually did a bunch of reading on this because I'm like, well, how did they possibly make this second movie?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there was like a lot of questions being asked as far as what ending are you going to use to be able to make the second one? Because again, as I said, there's different things that happen in both because the same main actress comes back for part two.
Mm-hmm.
So it's confusing. I haven't seen part two myself. I'll have to watch it to really check it out and see what I think of it. But I just thought it was you when you have different endings, you're going to run into that dilemma if you're going to try and make a sequel.
Well, the UK version, you couldn't really have a sequel because
Yeah, I guess with the UK version, you don't actually see her die. You
mm-hmm.
just see her kind of sitting there comatose as the creatures start moving towards her.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. So it's like you'd have to have another entirely new group of strangers stumble upon this cave that no one else has spoken of for thousands of years, right? Because when all these people go missing, people are going to go looking.
Yeah,
Now
of course.
they're gonna look in the wrong place because they went to the wrong cave system. So you're not gonna really. It'd be tough to find them, especially in the Appalachian Mountains. Like that covers so much area, man. So it's just
Mhm.
like what do you do? But they'd have to find the cars and branch out from there. But then even then, you know what I mean?
And
It's
you know
like
what? And you know what? Maybe ultimately, John, and this is the cynic in me. Maybe after the success it had in the UK, they realized they want to make a sequel. So then for the US version, they're like, okay, we have to make it so Sarah survives.
yeah, could be right.
And that again, that's just a cynic in me. As I said earlier, though, if you haven't seen this movie, check it on Amazon Prime. Again, that's the US version, and you can just hop onto Wikipedia to read the full ending. That obviously does a better job of summarizing it than I probably did. Um, Interesting thing that I read about this is that originally the script called for this to be a mixed cast, but they decided to cast only women in the main roles because Marshall really wanted to be a big contrast to his first film, Dog Soldiers, which was a mainly male cast.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that's kind of a bit of an interesting tidbit. He also claimed that some influences for the film were the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Thing, and Deliverance. Now you are the big horror expert. Can you see any of those three films in this one?
Well, for sure, Deliverance, Appalachian Mountains, The Thing, The Creatures, right?
Yeah.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Cannibalism.
Oh, there you go. And because I was kind of thinking about them, and like the thing obviously popped in my head right now, and then I guess Deliverance too, but I was having a tough time with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Hmm.
No, but again, just another interesting tidbit. And then
Yeah, for sure.
here's something that I would have hated if I was in this film. They hid what the creatures looked like from the actresses until the first scene where they actually saw them on film,
Oh wow.
just to get a little bit more of a natural reaction.
Yeah, I like that. I like it when they do that crap. That's cool.
And then the other thing, and it just shows to how good of a film this was. This wasn't filmed in caves. It was a complete fabricated set.
Oh, that's awesome.
And at any point in this movie, did I say I'm like, well, that doesn't look real.
No,
Oh,
I know.
that looks like a stupid studio. Oh, that's a dumb prop. Like I legitimately thought that they found a cave system to film this in.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was very well done. Very well done.
And I guess that they had thoughts to do it, but they ultimately decided to go with a set because they found that an actual cave would be far too dangerous and time consuming.
I would, yeah.
And
Sets,
then that makes sense.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And then the only other thing I have to share with you is again, I watched this film with my one buddy who likes to have that commentary when we're watching this. And for those who haven't seen this movie, you don't see the monsters, John, until about halfway through.
Yeah, I would even say like even over halfway. Yeah.
And so he had never seen it either. And at one point, he turns to me and he says, "Are there any actual monsters in this movie, or just a lot of bad luck?" Because again, they were having bad luck after bad luck from that little earthquake when they almost got
Yeah.
stuck, into losing the rope to things breaking, and so it's just again he brought some comic relief to this one for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else to add on this one, buddy?
No, other than you should watch this. If you like horror, you should watch this.
Check out The Descent. If you're upset with the ending, don't blame me. Blame the U.S. distributors. Well, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, and follow us on both Twitter and Instagram at Damn Movies. We want to hear what you thought of today's podcast and any suggestions you have, especially in terms of what movies you'd like us to discuss next. Send us an email to movieswiththedamned@gmail.com. Please also check out John's full-length novels. His first two novels, Dollhouse and The Tracker, are Amazon bestsellers. You can also order his novella Balance, his book of short stories, Four Shots of Horror, and his newest novel, Off the Grid, all available right now on Amazon. For further details on John's other published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, everyone, have a great week. Be safe, and